On today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast, James Gunn says there's not going to be a Suicide Squad 2. Blue Beetle is the first official character of the new DCU that James Gunn and Peter Safran are launching. Exactly how bad is the CGI in the upcoming Flash movie that opens up this weekend? A lot of people are asking about that. Their first reviews for Marvel's Secret Invasion have come out. We'll talk about that. Also, talking to James Gunn in his interview, he listed off what he said is the greatest comic book movie of all time. We'll talk about which one that is. And Peacemaker is going to go into production on its season 2 immediately after Superman Legacy. That and a few things more. The John Campea Show podcast starts right now. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here in our little studio. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, TV, and streaming, and all sorts of good things. Not just giving you our opinions, but giving you some information and context so you guys can form your own well-informed opinions, whether they're the same or completely different from ours. It is Wednesday, which means Chris Carr is not here. Wednesdays are her days off, but I am fortunate to be joined by Ray Ora.
Are you fortunate?
That's a good question. That's a philosophical question. And of course, Jonathan Voico is here.
Hey, everybody.
And most importantly, you guys are here. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to break it down into two parts. The first part of the show, we're going to talk about those predetermined topics. Then in the second part of the show, we're going to take the questions from our YouTube channel members. Now, if you're listening to this on podcast, thank you for subscribing to our podcast. We also have a YouTube channel where we put up some daily videos, and we have channel members over there, our beloved channel members, and every day we ask them to send in any topics or questions that they would like to hear us discuss on the show, and we'll get to those just a little bit later. All right. With that down, let's get into it here, shall we? And the first thing is this. Now, James Gunn, the new co-CEO of DC, along with Peter Safran, he just recently did this interview on Inside of You, the new podcast by, what's the guy's name played last
Michael Rosenbaum?
Michael Rosenbaum.
Rosenbaum.
Yeah, Michael Rosenbaum. And the podcast is fabulous. I love that podcast. I think it's great. So he had James Gunn on. I didn't know. I guess those guys have been friends for like 20 years. So I had no idea about that. Learned a lot. But James Gunn, and we're going to talk about a number of things that he covered on today's podcast, but James Gunn talked about a lot of things. And one of the things he talked about, he just mentioned very briefly, but I thought was kind of important, and I don't see anybody else talking about it. While talking about Peacemaker, and we'll talk about Peacemaker more in a bit, Suicide Squad came up. Now, of course, he directed a fabulous, fabulous Suicide Squad movie. And the question came up, are you going to do a Suicide Squad 2? Is there going to be a sequel? To which he said, just very quickly, and then they moved on, no, they're not going to have a Suicide Squad sequel. Now, he did point out that, we've got characters from Suicide Squad out there. We got a Peacemaker out there, and season 2 is going to come. We got a Waller series that they're doing. That's, of course, going to have a couple of the characters from Suicide Squad, his Suicide Squad. But he said, no, there's not going to be a sequel. And I think this is tremendously unfortunate because I thought that movie was fantastic. Like one of the best DCEU era movies out there. Maybe the second or third best they did behind Man of Steel. But I would put it up there. Like, I just really thought it was a fantastic film. The story about Ratcatcher and her father and the way they handled King Shark and the humor in it. And I thought it was bonkers good. However, let's go over to this graphic I have here. So the reality is, if you look right smack dab in the middle there, Suicide Squad only made $168 million at the box office. Now, granted, there are a couple of big asterisks that need to go along with that, right? We were still in the pandemic era. Warner Brothers, under the old ownership of AT&T, made the gigantic, idiotic decision to take all their movies that year and dump them on HBO Max. So Suicide Squad, yeah, it got a theatrical release, but it was also on HBO Max at the same time. So they really cut the knees out from all that kind of stuff. But still, James Gunn, even though this is his franchise, he is now a studio executive, and he's got to sit back and go, look, the reality is it didn't do all that well. And I would go so far as to say this, as great of a movie as that Suicide Squad is, even if it hadn't been dropped on HBO Max, and even if it wasn't in a pandemic era, it would have done better, yes, but I don't know that it would have been a gigantic hit, right? People weren't clamoring for DC at the time. And the reality is, even though I like the original Suicide Squad, I have fun with it. I mean, it's a hot mess of a movie, but I had fun with it. A lot of people have very sour tastes in their mouths from the previous Suicide Squad. And so I don't know if it would have been a big, massive hit regardless, so they didn't do it.
I don't think it needed a sweet sequel. You know why? They made the dumbest decision ever in that movie. That's to kill off Rick Flag, baby.
Oh, you're talking about in James Gunn's Suicide Squad?
Yeah, so they don't need us. What are we talking about? A sequel to his Suicide Squad?
Yeah, a sequel to his Suicide Squad.
Yeah, so they don't need it. Without Rick Flag, you don't need another movie.
It was such a great moment. It was an emotional, moving, narratively rich moment that Rick Flag dies, and I think it was important for Peacemaker's character development.
Oh, it's all about Peacemaker.
Well, no, what I'm saying
Come on, he got stabbed in the heart. You could have stabbed him in the neck and the heart. That's where it stabbed me. But in the heart.
When you watch Peacemaker later, like that haunts him, right? And I think that
it haunts me. It haunts me every day. I like that character. He brought the group together.
I love Rick Flag, but I think that's why. That's one of the things I admire about James Gunn. He was willing to take this character that was so great and yet for the purpose of the story, kill him off. And
yeah, but in a way, why would there be I'm being serious here.
Right.
Without I saw him as more of like the leader that brought the group together, kept them in line, tried to keep them in line.
Right.
Without him, it's like there is no group. Maybe they're just disbanded now. I don't know.
I think in the movie, Idris Elba's character kind of became more the front and center leader of that. And with Peacemaker's character development in season 1, it would be nice to see him back with that group. I loved the story. Yep. I want to see more Sylvester Stallone's King Shark. I love the story of Ratcatcher. I just thought it would be fun to see them together again.
What I enjoyed was that Idris Elba and John Cena competition they had.
The kill-off competition?
Yeah, that was such a good part right there.
That is one of the most bonkers scenes in movies that year when they were having this...
When they're sharper, smaller bullets or something like that?
When they're having this competition about who can kill people in the coolest way.
Yeah, because they're rescuing
they're walking
someone,
through
right?
the village, right? Which they think is a terrorist village.
Right.
Turns out they were all good guys.
Yeah.
That is, by the way, that moment when they realized...
He's like, my team is here.
That this was their allies they'd just been killing. I'm like, oh my God. I love that part.
What a great opening to that.
But apparently, not going to be a... Suicide Squad.
We're getting bigger things.
We're getting bigger things. I mean, the most important, we're getting Peacemaker, we're getting Waller. Those characters are still going to be around, I guess.
And it brings the open to Margot Robbie. Maybe she plays a different character. I don't know. I will forever want her as Harley Quinn. I hope she's Harley Quinn in this new DCU. But you know what? Maybe it'll open her up to another role where she kicks ass in that one too.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see Harley. I don't think we're going to see Margot Robbie's Harley anymore.
We're going to see Harley, though. You know that, right?
I'm not completely convinced of that.
Other than the Trinity, she's a very popular character. I don't know why you won't even touch her.
I don't know that they will. At least not in the next 5 years.
So
because we looked at that one thing. Let me see if I can bring it up here because Ray put together a really good list. Like for those of you who are watching the video version here on Spotify, there's a big list here of chapter 1 of the new DCU, right? Creature Commandos, Waller, Superman, Legacy, and Lantern. Other than Waller, I don't see anywhere in here a Harley Quinn isn't going to be in Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
I don't think she's going to be in Supergirl One of Tomorrow. I don't think she's going to be in Booster Gold. I don't think she's going to be in the Batman Brave and the Bold. I don't think she's going to be in Paradise Lost, nor The Authority, nor Lanterns, nor Superman Legacy, or Creature Commandos. I mean, again, maybe Waller, but I can't see Margot Robbie coming in to do a streaming show.
And Creature Commandos is an animation, right?
Yeah, that one's an animation. So
I'm really excited, no matter what.
I'm excited for a lot of stuff they got coming up. I just don't know that we're going to see Harley Quinn anytime soon.
Yeah, you're right. Looking at that list, yeah.
We'll find out. All right. Let's move on from that and go to a connected story to this, which is Peacemaker. And we did discuss this a little bit earlier. We did a video on this on the YouTube channel a little bit earlier, but during that conversation that James Gunn was having, he did mention that there is, number one, going to be a Peacemaker season 2, which, I mean, that has kind of been the assumption since it was the most successful show that they had. And I personally believe it is the best DC show of all time. Like, I think, listen, I'm a big fan of a lot of the stuff that was in the Arrowverse, including Flash and Arrow. I was a big fan of Smallville, all due respect to all those. But I think Peacemaker is hands down, I think the best show that DC has ever done. And so it was kind of assumed there would be a season 2, but, you know, it wasn't listed with chapter 1 of the new DCU with all those other things. But now James Gunn in that interview, and I'll quote this directly. He said, this was from IGN that wrote, speaking on the Inside You podcast, James Gunn shared a little on how Peacemaker would fit into the already incredibly busy DCU schedule. That includes 5 films and 5 shows of its own. Now, this is what James Gunn said. He said, Peacemaker's coming back right after I do Superman. That's my next thing. I'll go straight into Peacemaker from Superman. And that comes to us from James Gunn. So I mentioned on the YouTube video earlier that we did that I have 2 separate thoughts on this. The first thought is, yes, yes, yeah. It's the best show they've ever done. I love this show so much. And the fact that James Gunn himself is going to be hands-on with things, whether he's just going to write it or whether he's going to, you know, be the controlling producer or whether he's going to be a director of a bunch of episodes, whatever. James Gunn is clearly going to be very hands-on with Peacemaker season 2. This is probably, other than Superman Legacy, I think my most anticipated thing DC has coming up because I love the series that much. I really do. Earlier today, I popped on YouTube the opening song and the opening credits for Peacemaker, and it just made my day better. Just watching that made my day feel like a happy day. I loved it, and I cannot wait to see this. So that's the one thought, right? That's the one thought. The other thought is, hey, James, aren't you supposed to, be the head of the studio now? Shouldn't you kind of be busy with kind of bigger picture things and the overall development of everything that's going on? Like I understand him directing and writing Superman Legacy. That is the first film setting the tone for the brand new DCU. And to have your head guy be the one to come in and write and direct it to set the direction, totally got that and completely agree with it. It's a great decision. But once you're done with Superman Legacy, doesn't somebody need to be sitting on the throne? Like I get it, Peter Safran's there too, but don't you need to be bigger picture? So I'm a little bit concerned about that.
Look, he has a lot riding on this. You know, he wants to make sure this rocket gets to orbit first.
What is the picture in the corner?
He wants to make sure this rocket gets to orbit first. Sometimes you got to extend your duties in order to make sure something starts off right. That's all I think this is. I think he just wants to make sure this baby gets off the ground, up and running.
Right.
And that's all it is. I mean, he may be exhausted after all this, the first phase, whatever. But then I think if everything goes right, he could start lending the reins to other people. But I just think he's babying this right now. It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Look, all those projects are happening. And I think they're all coming out before Peacemaker season 2. Like, shouldn't he be keeping his eye on all these things?
Now, is he writing and directing?
We don't know. Like, he's writing and directing Superman Legacy.
No, yeah, but I mean Peacemaker.
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
It's clear he's going to be very hands-on, especially when he says the words like, Peacemaker's coming back right after I do Superman.
I mean, to be show running a series and be a studio exec, a major studio exec.
While just writing and directing one film, and now show running directly, hands-on, because when he says, I will go straight into Peacemaker from Superman. Yeah. So it sounds like whether he's directing, writing, or show running, he's to some level, he's going to be very, very hands-on in this. And I just can't help but wonder if he shouldn't take a step back. Like Kevin Feige, while he's very hands-on with a lot of the stuff at Marvel, Kevin Feige doesn't direct anything.
Yeah.
And he doesn't come in and directly show run anything. And I just wonder if, again, I got it with Superman Legacy to start things off. But maybe at that point, you need, I don't know.
It gives me actually the opposite feeling. It shows me that he has this road, this direction he really wants to go on.
He's completely invested.
He's such a creative mind. Like, especially if he loves these properties, it's not going to be that hard for him to like direct the things that he's taking his hands, putting his hands on.
Yeah.
I just think he's very confident. And I think he knows what he's doing. He's been watching Kevin Feige from afar, probably throughout the good times and the bad times of Marvel.
Well, he's worked very closely with Feige. Yeah,
he knows exactly where things probably went wrong, and so I have all the confidence in the world. He's going to get this rocket up into. orbit.
Look, I will say this: if there's anybody who I think is going to be able to pull this off, it's James Gunn. I just get, just think he should be focusing more on big picture things.
Look at his swan song at the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. He could have packed it up. This guy is a genius.
Oh, no, absolutely. But he wasn't the head of DC Studios when he was making Guardians of the Galaxy. He wasn't the head of a studio when he made that movie,
as long as he's not taking two things at once,
Well, this in a way is actually three things at once. Because
really?
Well, yeah, you're wrapping up Superman. And also, he said, as soon as I'm done with Superman. Well, does that mean like Superman is released, or like you're in post-production of Superman and you start pre-production of
I think he's saying I think he's saying, and again, this is a little bit of interpretation here, but I think what he's saying is the moment, like before the movie comes out, the moment I'm done on that movie, like once everything's wrapped,
picture lock.
We got picture lock. I'm rolling right into Peacemaker.
Yeah, his focus.
But he's still running.
And I think his focus needs to then, instead of turning to Peacemaker, which don't get me wrong, I am so fucking happy he's doing Peacemaker. I totally am. I'm just saying, to play devil's advocate,
right.
I just wonder if once he's so laser focused on one project, DC Superman Legacy, if he then should not remove his focus from just one project and start to look at all 10.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But again, if anybody can do it, it's James Gunn.
My one worry, if there's any, is the release schedule. If he's focusing on one thing, we won't get the next thing for a little bit after that.
Well, but remember, they can make stuff without him. They can be in production on 5 of these things at once because he's not writing and directing. He's a studio head. Right. And I need him back in that throne. So I don't know. We'll see.
Good luck to him, man.
Good luck to him indeed.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. That down. Let's move on to our Mint Mobile hotline question of the day. In case you guys didn't know, we have a Mint Mobile hotline that you can call in a question or topic to be turned into its own standalone YouTube video or to be addressed right here on the podcast. And if you've got a question or topic you'd like us to address and you'd like to hear your voice, go ahead and call it in anytime 24/7 to 951-268-4259. And today's question revolves around hey, just how bad is some of the CGI in this new Flash movie? Check it out.
Hey, this is Phil Lynch calling. So someone leaked a cameo in The Flash last night showing the CGI, one that we've all been waiting to see. And I'm not going to lie, the CGI looks pretty terrible. As someone who's seen the movie, is this a choice they decided to go with, or is it just as bad as it looks online? I'm not going to lie, I'm excited for The Flash, but this doesn't really give me confidence. Give me some comfort here, John, please.
All right, Phil, thanks a lot for calling that in. And yeah, look, Flash is coming out this weekend. Cannot wait. By the way, we're going to be doing an open spoiler discussion for The Flash on Sunday. So we'll have a big get together. Come on by, join us on our YouTube channel. We're going to do a big live open spoiler discussion for Flash on Sunday that gives you guys a number of days to go and see it once it opens. And the movie's great. I think the movie's great. Ray, if you want to just look up, see what the critic review. The critics' reviews are actually lower than I thought they would be.
Last time I saw it, but I'll get it.
It was in the 70s, the low 70s.
72%, and I believe it's, oh no.
Uh-oh, what's it at now?
69%. No. Now it's 70%. When you click on it, it says 70%.
Okay, so 70%. I, quite frankly, I wasn't expecting this movie to be in the high 90s, but I was expecting it to be in the mid to high 80s, to be honest.
Check this out. That's out of 164 reviews, and the audience score is 95%.
Out of how many?
50 plus reviews.
50 plus, yeah, because only so many people have been able to see those early fan screenings.
That still looks good to me, man, for a movie that was in the dirt.
I was honestly expecting. Now, granted, at 70%, that means if you gathered 100 critics in the room, 70 of them are saying, we like this movie, and only 30 are saying that they don't. But I was expecting to be higher because I think this movie is great. I think it's great. I don't think it's one of the greatest comic book films of all time, but I think it is great and a lot of fun. That being said, as we were watching the film last month, there are moments in the film where the CGI, the visual effects, are a little questionable. There's no denying that. Particularly, and you know, the director has talked about this cameo publicly and openly, but just in case there's somebody who hasn't heard it, we won't, and since it's not on our thumbnail or anything, we won't go into it here. But there are a couple of cameos in the movie, one in particular, and that one in particular is a lot of CGI, and it didn't look great. Now, I just, in my brain, when it was going on and happening, I just wrote it off to, it's a style choice. Just a style choice, whatever. But I will say this. While the CGI in the cameo did not look great, it did not take away, the non-great CGI didn't take away 1 ounce of that audience's raving enthusiasm when it came on screen. Now, not everybody realized what the cameo was when it happened, but you could tell in the audience who knew what that cameo was, they all lost their mind. We saw it in a theater with like 4,000 or 5,000 people, and those 4,000 or 5,000 people lost their mind. And the fact that the CGI on it wasn't exactly up to snuff, and it was not up to snuff. But even though it wasn't, it didn't take away one single bit of the moment, right? And I think sometimes today listen, you want every part of the filmmaking process and art to be done as good as it can be. Absolutely 100%. But that can be true, while it also being true that there are some things that don't really take away from the movie. And while I agree there are moments of very questionable CGI, including this one with this cameo, I would contend that it didn't actually take away from the moment at all. I don't know, Ray, you were there with me. You saw this thing. What do you think?
When we saw the movie and that part came up, I saw it, you saw it. It was just bad. It didn't look like it matched with a lot of things. But you know what? When we were leaving that theater, that wasn't even in my thought at all.
Exactly. I didn't even make it a point. Right? We're just thinking about it.
Yeah, I didn't make it even a point of complaining about it. It wasn't that important to me because as a whole, I was just so happy that this movie that took so long to come out ended up being really good. It's actually my favorite DCEU of the old regime movie. And then Man of Steel probably underneath there. Yeah, but you know, like it's sad that our viewer actually saw that and is questioning it off that small part. Like, don't worry about it. I'm pretty sure you're going to like this movie.
See, here's the thing. I think it's perfectly fine if everybody finds out the cameo is happening. But I agree with you. I think the really unfortunate thing would be to see it and then to already have it in your mind, I don't like that, before seeing it in context of the movie. Yeah. So I think knowing the cameo is there is perfectly fine. I just wish people didn't see the picture of it, so it might ruin their experience with the cameo.
That's not the whole quality of the
coming.
Movie. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
That's not the quality of the movie. You can't judge it by that.
Yeah, no, the movie's great. I think most people, I don't think everybody, because all film is subjective. Everybody has movie sets, but I think most people are going to have a really good time with it. And I can't wait to watch it again.
Yep.
All right, guys. With that down, we're going to take just a minute because we're going to talk about Secret Invasion reviews have started to come out. James Gunn talks about what he thinks is actually the greatest comic book movie of all time. He gives a really interesting answer and a little bit of Blue Beetle. But before we get to those things, we're going to take a minute here and thank a couple of the sponsors of today's episode of our podcast, our friends at MasterClass and ExpressVPN. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, MasterClass. With MasterClass, you can learn from the world's best minds anytime, anywhere, and at your own pace. You can learn filmmaking from James Cameron himself, you know, the guy who made 3 of the 4 biggest films of all time. Improve your writing by taking screenwriting from one of the greatest who's ever done it, Aaron Sorkin. Or maybe learn how to make great comedic content by taking comedy by the one and the only Judd Apatow. And many of you guys know I'm a big poker guy, and I recently got a chance to sit down and watch Daniel Negreanu, one of the greatest poker players in the world, teach poker. It was absolutely fantastic. But guys, whatever you're interested in, there is a class for you with over 180 exclusive classes taught by the instructors you know and love. And you can explore lessons in any order you'd like across your phone, tablet, Apple TV, computer, and on the go with audio mode. Individual lessons range from about 10 to 15 minutes in length that fit easily into your everyday life. Guys, I highly recommend you check it out. Get unlimited access to every class, and as a John Campea Show listener, you get 15% off an annual membership. Go to masterclass.com/Campea now. That's masterclass.com/Campea for 15% off Masterclass. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, ExpressVPN. Guys, it is 2023, and online privacy and security has never been more important. You see, every device, phones, computers, tablets, has a unique IP address, which is like an internet phone number and reveals personal information about you. It's super simple for somebody online who knows what they're doing to find your IP address if you've ever clicked on a sketchy link or opened an email from somebody you don't know. Your IP address could become exposed. Now that's where ExpressVPN has your back. ExpressVPN is an app that hides your real IP address and replaces it with a dummy one, keeping you safe and private. And you don't have to be some kind of techie to use a VPN. Guys, it is so easy to use. Just download the ExpressVPN app on your phone or computer, tap one button to turn it on, and you're protected. And if you like your streaming entertainment, here's the coolest part. They let you choose what country you want your IP address to look like it's coming from. This is incredibly useful because services like Netflix and Disney Plus give you different shows depending on what country you're in. So secure your family's online activity and unlock tons of new shows by visiting expressvpn.com/Campea. Use my link and you can get 3 extra months free. That's expressvpn.com/Campea. Go to expressvpn.com/Campea to learn more. And thank you to our friends at MasterClass and ExpressVPN for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's go into this. You know, another detail, again, like I said before, there was a lot packed into that James Gunn interview. But also included in that was some really interesting things he said about Blue Beetle. Now, of course, Blue Beetle is coming out here mid-August. August 18th or something, 16th, 15th, 18th, blah, 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 right in there, mid-August.
Yeah, somewhere.
Blue Beetle's coming out, right? Which is a fascinating project because, number one, it's a character that not a lot of the average movie-going audience is aware of or knows about. But also, it was a movie that was supposed to be made to go directly to streaming. And they took a look at it and said, you know what? This is actually pretty good. We think this should get a theatrical release. Great. Now, I don't think the trailers for Blue Beetle have been the greatest trailers in the world, but I'm still pretty fascinated by this. I think it's got some potential. But at any rate, James Gunn was asked by Michael Rosenbaum about Blue Beetle, and James Gunn said something interesting. Let me bring up this quote here. He said this, I mean, the first DCU character for sure is Blue Beetle, and the first DCU movie is Superman. Again, the first DCEU character for sure, says James Gunn, is Blue Beetle, and the first DCEU movie is Superman. Okay, so there's a couple of things to unpack there, which, and we made a video about this one earlier on the YouTube channel, but a couple of fascinating things here. Number one, he says that this Blue Beetle we're about to get in this brand new DCEU that we're starting, that's our first character. Right there. Blue Beetle. Xolo Majurena. I forget how to pronounce his last name, but the kid from Karate Kids Cobra Kai. Starring in this, looks good.
Right.
All this kind of stuff. He's saying this is our first character. But Superman Legacy is the first movie. All right. So this is how I interpret it. He didn't expand on that a lot in the interview. Here's my interpretation of it. And you guys listening to this, you tell me if you had a different interpretation or not. But my interpretation of what James Gunn was saying was that, hey, Xolo as Blue Beetle, he's going to be part of the new DCU. That is the first guy you're seeing as a part of the new DCU. So Blue Beetle is canon, but the movie is not. Now, that's me interpreting what James Gunn said when he says Blue Beetle's the first character, but Superman is the first movie. That's telling me that all the things that necessarily happen in this Blue Beetle movie are not necessarily going to be canon or reality in the new DCU. So we're going to see Xolo as Blue Beetle, but maybe not necessarily his family in the movie. Not necessarily the events that happen in the movie. Maybe how he becomes Blue Beetle is canon to the new DCU, but maybe everything else surrounding it is not. And then Superman Legacy, the James Gunn movie, that is the first official, truly canon movie in that. Now, again, James Gunn did not elaborate. There is some interpretation going on here, but that's what I thought he meant when he said that.
I'm very excited by this news because, like, when I started, like, the Injustice fighting game, right? There's a lot of characters on there that I'm not familiar with. One of them was Blue Beetle, but his cutscenes and his, like, just what the things he said, I was like, I want to know more about this character. And now we're getting a movie about him.
In Injustice, and I love Injustice, but the Blue Beetle they use the Jaime.
Yeah,
right?
I believe
not the Ted Cord Blue Beetle.
No,
right?
I believe
okay,
it's Jaime Ray.
Yeah.
But this character could end up being a fan favorite. Like,
I
just
agree.
because his unlimited powers, it seems like he doesn't know everything he could do. He's a kid. You know, all that stuff is great. He might be the cameo guy that brings everything, like starts putting everything together.
I don't know. I don't know. Making him that important.
I don't see him making an actual sequel or a full movie of Blue Beetle in James Gunn's thing. I think he might pop up here and there every now and then in other people's things. Just when he says he's the first DC hero, because I don't see another movie being made unless it gets extremely popular from this movie.
Well, I mean, but that's the big thing, right? It's like, how is this movie going to do at the box office? And I don't know. And let me see if I can find that one chart. Yeah. We'll go back to the same Suicide Squad chart. But Ray put this graphic together. For those of you listening, I'll read it out if you're listening to the podcast. But the last 5 DCEU, remember, the old DC is the DCEU. The new one is the DCU. But the last 5, not counting Flash because it's not officially out yet, the last 5 DCEU movies have all not done well. Birds of Prey, 205 million. Now, some of these need an asterisk besides them because of straight to streaming or because of pandemic. I'm still just going to go through the pure numbers of it here. Birds of Prey, 205 million. That's worldwide total. Wonder Woman 1984, 169 million. The Suicide Squad, James Gunn Suicide Squad, 168 million. Black Adam with the world's biggest movie star, only $393 million. Didn't even crack 400. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which is a movie that I like, only made $133 million worldwide, and what I believe is the biggest flop in the history of the big blockbuster superhero films. Biggest flop ever. And that's the environment under which Blue Beetle's coming out. So, like, if this movie comes out and completely flops, I mean, like, under 200 million, there's definitely not going to be a sequel. And I don't know how much you use Jaime Reyes' character, if nobody wanted to go see his movie. I'm just not sure.
Look, where this movie will do well in is if it's good. The word of mouth is going to get
That's
people.
the hope.
Yeah, that's the hope. So let's just
But
hope.
Shazam! Fury of the Gods was good.
No, but you didn't really hear a lot of people saying, go see it. Like, even when we did our review, we're like, if you like the first Shazam, check it out.
Yeah.
We weren't pushing. I wasn't really pushing
like
people to go.
Shazam! Fury of the Gods wasn't one of the great comic book movies of the past 5 years, but it was good. And normally that's, you just want a movie that's good. But now it seems like if you're a DC movie, you can't just be good. You can't just be a good, solid movie. Now it's, no one's going to believe that it's any good unless people start coming out saying it's one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. And I don't know if Blue Beetle's going to be that.
Let's hope the Flash sets the DC.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's going to set the tone.
To a better light. You know.
I mean, the Blue Beetle filmmakers are really hoping people love Flash.
Yeah, because that might help Blue Beetle. I think even a little bit, even if it gets 5 more tickets sold, I think James Gunn saying he's a part of the new thing
might help.
Will help a little
bit of promotion there. All right. Well, there's that. Okay. Let's go on and talk about this thing here for a second. So, switching gears from DC over to Marvel. Marvel has their new series coming out pretty quick here, Secret Invasion, with Samuel L. Jackson taking the lead on it. And really, it's picking up on the story elements that we got in Captain Marvel with the Skrulls and what's happened years later after, the events of Captain Marvel and what's going on. Now, I have read the script, and I like the script. I like it. And I've seen some of it. I've seen some bits of it that somebody who was not supposed to show it to me showed to me. And I liked what I saw. Not enough that I could give you a really overall, because listen, in my career, I have read some scripts that I loved and then watched the movie and not loved the movie, even though they're clearly, this is the movie that was made from that script. So sometimes the script reads better than the movie turns out. That being said, I've liked what I've read in the script. I like what I've seen from the show so far. Well, now reviews are coming out. And as of this moment, if I go over to Rotten Tomatoes, they're saying, counting 25 reviews, Secret Invasion has a near 70%. It's at a 68% right now. Good. That's a good rating. That means out of 100 critics, 68 of them like it, 32 of them don't. So a good solid majority of the critics like this show so far. Okay, that's great. So I thought we'd take a second here and listen to what some of them had to say about it. So first we're going to start with IndieWire, one of my favorite outlets actually. They didn't like it. Secret Invasion proves as tepid as it is inert. Wow, that's not great. Also, the Daily Telegraph from the UK, another top critic, wrote, Jackson, also they didn't like it, Jackson used to bring a ravish pizzazz to even his darker parts. Here, he seems as fed up with the Marvel formula as a growing segment of the audience.
Yeah.
High praise. But then we get into some people who liked it. The London Evening Standard, right? It's fun enough. This is a Marvel show after all, which means it's slick and polished affair that speeds along, throwing in Easter eggs and zingers with abandon for the fans to savor. All right. Then Empire Magazine liked it. They said, as one of the MCU's most mature projects to date, Secret Invasion is a riveting, tense drama that gifts its actors with weighty material and encourages its audience to look beyond the sheen of superheroism. That is some pretty high damn praise from Empire. You know what? Maybe that review from Empire might be what some people are looking for when he writes it's the most mature project they've done to date. Some people might be looking for that. Then we go to Variety. Variety magazine liked it. They said, in the main, Secret Invasion has things on its mind that is content to tease out in a pace that a Marvel film might not allow. So they're saying they take advantage of the fact that this is a series. They stretch, not stretch it out is the right word, but they pace it out in such a way that they don't feel like they have to rush through the narrative because it's a show, not a movie. Great. Well, then the Variety liked it. The Hollywood Reporter didn't, though. Hollywood Reporter wrote, for the most part, Secret Invasion is more dour and even dull than one might expect from its John Le Carre, Graham Greene trappings. So it's good and it's bad. Then we see comicbook.com liked it. They said Secret Invasion is absolutely fine. So that's high praise.
They said, just fine.
Yep. Nerd Reactor liked it. Comicbookmovie.com liked it. Looper didn't like it. And so on and so forth. So right now, a 68% for a Secret Invasion. And I'm telling you, a 68 is not far off from where I kind of thought this might come. Because like I said, I like the script. I don't think it's the greatest thing I've ever read. I like what I've seen so far. I don't think it's the greatest stuff I've seen so far. But I think it's good. I think Secret Invasion is good, and that's all I think a rational fan should be looking for. Is it good? Now, you hope it's great, but will it, at the end of the day, at least be enjoyable? And we'll see.
Yeah, and the last series before this one was She-Hulk, right?
Was that the last one?
Before, like the last Marvel
I think so.
Disney series?
I think so.
Let's say if it was, would you guess the Rotten Tomato score on She-Hulk?
Oh. Well, you got to remember, the Rotten Tomatoes score on She-Hulk was mostly based on just the first two episodes.
Oh, okay, that
Remember?
explains it.
Because they let a bunch of the press see the first two episodes, and then a lot of them wrote their reviews just based on the first two episodes.
Okay.
Now, if you had asked me what I thought of She-Hulk after just the first two episodes, I would have said, yeah, this is pretty good. Because I did. I thought the first couple of episodes are pretty good. Ooh, that changed. That changed as I got into the rest of the series. And I realized, this is not funny. This is a comedy that is not funny. But what were the critic scores on it?
Oh, well, the tomato meter was 80%.
See, and you know what? And I get that. The first 2 episodes, I would have been part of the 80% too.
The audience score is where it really shines.
Where was the audience score?
32%.
Yeah, and that's where I would have ended up with that. I mean, that show had a lot of promise. But here's hoping. Here's hoping. Now, unlike She-Hulk, I actually had a chance to read the script of this one, so I hope it turns out and lives up to its potential.
I'm very scared Marvel is almost really close. Well, not really close to having a documentary, area for me where it's like the rise and fall of Marvel. We're almost there. They got to keep the ship afloat.
Hey, listen, they just got a very much needed win.
Right.
With Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Right.
They needed that.
Yeah,
that needed to come along at that right time, right? Because I have contended for a little while now that magic, the Marvel magic is gone. Not that they don't still have great things. When I say that Marvel has lost the Marvel magic, I don't mean that none of their stuff is good anymore. I mean that unattainable magic that you had in the Marvel movies for the first 3 phases. Not that every movie Marvel made in the first 3 phases were great. There was Thor: The Dark World. There was Iron Man 2. But it got to the point that so many of their movies were so good that every time, see, when I go to a movie, I know there's a 50-50 chance that I'm going to really like it or maybe really not like it, right? That's movie going. But with Marvel, for the first 3 phases, it was just, I'm going to a new Marvel movie. I just assume it's going to be awesome. Because almost all of the Marvel projects in the first 3 phases would hit the hat trick. Big box office response, big critic response, big audience responses. All of them, all the time, every time. And that was the Marvel magic. They lost it. Because now, a Marvel property is just like anything else. It's some of them are going to be great and some of them ain't. And it's a coin toss every time. Like for every Ms. Marvel, which is fantastic, you get a She-Hulk. For every Guardians 3, which is fantastic, you get an Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And it's just, you never know what you're getting with Marvel now.
And plus, I think the opposite has happened. What I expected at first when the Disney Plus series would come out was these would be supplements to their movies. Like, these would be the things that you watch heading into movies. Maybe it's going reverse. Like, these things are hurting the movies, especially if they're poor series that actually are connected to the next movie.
Maybe, because so far, while WandaVision and Ms. Marvel were fantastic, everything else, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, almost everything else has felt unnecessary. You know, just
filler
content for the sake of feeding the Disney Plus content. And we'll have to see.
Might be hurting them.
With that down, guys, one more little thing I want to touch on. The last thing, I told you there was a lot to glean from that James Gunn interview. This is the last thing. And it's a tiny thing, but I loved it. So we're going to talk about it. It basically came up where I don't know why they got around to talking about this movie in particular, but James Gunn in this interview revealed what he believes is the greatest comic book movie of all time. And it's not what you think. Because Michael Rosenbaum asked James Gunn, number 1, what is the best Marvel movie? Number 2, what is the best MCU movie? And James Gunn answered those questions. He said, I think the best MCU movie is the first Iron Man. He said that movie's just fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what he said the best overall Marvel movie was. Oh, I know. It's this one. He said the best overall Marvel movie and the best comic book movie of all time is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. James Gunn said the best comic book movie ever is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, the fun thing is, I think this interview was recorded prior to him seeing Across the Spider-Verse. So I don't know if he thinks Across the Spider-Verse is even better or whatever. But I loved that you had this guy who directed in the MCU, the guy who is currently the head of DC, and he pulled out a Sony movie to say that is the greatest comic book film of all time. And you know what? It's not mine, but you know me, I've said forever, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out in 2018, the same year that two other great comic book movies came out. Avengers Infinity War and Black Panther. Both magnificent. And the best, I've always said the best comic book movie of that year was Spider-Man. It was the year of Miles Morales. It was not the year of T'Challa, was not the year of Thanos. It was the year of Miles Morales. That was the best comic book movie that year. And so I don't personally think it's the best comic book movie of all time, but I love hearing James Gunn, a Marvel director, the president and CEO of DC Films, saying, yeah, neither of us. It's Sony. Sony made the best comic book movie ever. And I just think that's fascinating.
Those are two great answers, because there's only one Marvel movie that I've ever bought on DVD. It's that old. It's Iron Man 1.
That's the one you bought in physical media.
That's the only one I bought. The special features on there are so great, from beginning of pre-production to the red carpet, all the way through. It's just an awesome DVD set to have. If you guys haven't seen it, it's great. Into the Spider-Verse, when the trailers first came out and they showed him running through the street,
right,
and you saw the comic bubbles in such a different way.
So well used.
I knew that thing was going to be crazy, unique, and amazing. It ended up being amazing. I don't fault him for answering both those, both those answers.
I want to ask Jonathan. Jonathan, if you were posed that question, what do you think is the best Marvel movie ever made? Marvel movie, not even overall best comic
just
movie.
Overall?
Just Marvel. Which one would you say is the best Marvel movie ever made?
Oh, man. I don't know.
I still
Spider-Man
think
2 is still up there for me, just because of, like, maybe it just resonated with me at the time.
Really? Iron Man 2?
No, Spider-Man.
Oh, Spider-Man 2. I was going to say, because Iron Man 2 is the worst one they've ever made.
As far as MCU, my favorite is still Winter Soldier.
Oh, so good.
That's still my favorite.
So good.
MCU.
As good as that movie is, I don't find myself urging to rewatch it a lot. That's where I have to maybe rethink what I like to include that now. Which one, if I had a thing to watch again, which one would I pick? Winter Soldier, as good as it is, and it's really good, I'm not sure my rewatch value for that is really high.
Well, you know that's the funny thing about movies. Like, sometimes the better movies are not necessarily the most rewatchable, and sometimes the most rewatchable are not necessarily the best movies. But so the two, like, for me, it's still the first Avengers movie. Like, I still think that's arguably might be the greatest comic book movie of all time, is that first one. But Winter Soldier is so freaking good. Civil War is so freaking good. The first Kenneth Branagh Thor movie is so freaking good.
Man. We watched that like 15 times.
Oh my God. I went to the
before
movie
it even came out.
Yeah, I went to go see that movie a lot. I saw that movie 3 times before it ever officially even came out.
I was with you all those times.
Every time I went, had to go see that one. All right, guys. Listen, with that down, we're now going to move on and take the questions from our YouTube channel members and their topics and questions that they wanted to raise. But before we get to that, we're going to take another moment here and thank another sponsor of today's episode of the podcast, my mobile service provider. And seriously, they really should be your mobile service provider too, our friends at Mint Mobile. We want to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. From the gas pump to the grocery store, your utility bills and favorite streaming services, inflation is everywhere. Seriously, make it stop. Thankfully, there's one company out there that's giving you a much needed break. It's Mint Mobile. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know that ever since I switched to Mint Mobile, I've been saving almost 70% a month over my old phone plan. For people looking for extra savings this year, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. By going online only and eliminating the traditional cost of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All of their plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all your existing contacts. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show podcast. By the way, guys, when you go and check out and support our sponsors, you're actually supporting us. So if you look in the description, you'll find links and promo codes to all of today's sponsors. And thank you again to Mint Mobile, MasterClass, and ExpressVPN. All right. With that down, guys, let's get over to the questions submitted by our YouTube channel members. Jonathan, what do we got up first?
Okay, Amin writes, happy 10th anniversary to Man of Steel. It also marks the same amount of time most of us have been watching you, John. Crazy how it's been 10 years since that infamous spoiler talk video. What's your all-time favorite quote from the film?
Oh, well, my all-time favorite quote, moment, everything from that film, and one of my favorites of all comic book films in history, is when a young Clark says to his dad, "Can we just keep pretending I'm your son?" And Kevin Costner takes him in his arms and with amazing emotion in his voice saying, "You are my son." That is one of the best moments, I honestly believe, in any comic book movie ever. I love that.
That's not it.
That's not it?
Yeah, you're wrong, John, I guess.
It's the people. The people.
That's right.
Because the first second there, he
Favorite
turned,
part, General Zod, my people.
that's where he turned Filipino for a second. That's what I would like to believe. He got the inner Filipino out. The people.
Ray, whenever I remember watching that movie with Ray, and every time he would say people, like Ray just starts it's this heavy emotional scene for General Zod, and Ray's just cracking up. People. All right, what's next?
Hey, from Leo, hey, John and crew. Have you rewatched Across the Spider-Verse since they fixed the sound mixing? Saw it 3 times from the original cut, and I'm excited to hear it like it was supposed to sound.
No, I have not heard it. Now, look, as much as I complained about the sound mix, at least unlike 1 or 2 Christopher Nolan offerings,
Shout out.
I could still understand what was being said, right? Like in the main part of the sound problem was in the first piece of the movie with Gwen Stacy. And she was just, the volume of her dialogue was way too low compared to the sound mix and the music. But even though it was too low and I had to struggle to hear it, I could hear it. It was a bad mix, but I could still hear it. So I look forward to seeing it again with the fixed audio, but it's not going to change my viewing experience too terribly much because it's not like I'm going to be going from, oh, that's cool because I never knew what she said in the first part of the film. I did. I was able to hear it. It's just that the mix should be better. All right, what's next?
From Lucas Slater. Hey, John and crew. John, as an MMA fan, what are your favorite martial arts movies of all time? Also, what did you think of Charles and Amanda's performances over the weekend? Ray, do you like watching UFC fights with John and Jonathan or Matt? Any Batman?
Okay, so can't squeeze in 4 or 5 questions in one submission.
I only watch UFC with John. That's the only way I watch. I mean, that's when I know the big fights are on, and that's when I can actually ask who is this guy, because recently all the cards I don't know half or 90% of the people anymore, because UFC is a train that keeps moving.
It's got a
even if
rate,
you don't watch, even if you keep up with all the pay-per-views, you're not going to know everybody, because there's someone new, there's someone really good, there's a lot of prospects there. So I go to John and watch when it's a stacked card, and I'm like, who's this guy? Tell me about him. John lets me know everything I need to know, or at least for that fight, and that's it. That's my UFC.
As far as the card, Charles Oliveira, he's a beast. I mean, he is just a slick. He used to be nothing but a great submission artist, but his striking has become top notch as well. And there's only one guy in the division he can't beat, and he won't beat. But he has beaten, other than the champ, he has beaten everyone in that division. The best of the best. He's a beast. And Amanda Nunes went out there, delivered another big dominant performance, and retired.
Oh, she did.
She retired at the end of the fight. She took her 2 belts.
Wow.
Put him down on the ground.
She beat everybody.
And she did, for a UFC, when a UFC fighter retires, the tradition is now they take off their gloves and put them down in the center of the ring. And that's what Amanda Nunes did. She took her 2 belts, put them down, cut off her gloves, put the gloves down, announced her retirement. She's financially set for life. There's nothing else she can do with her career. She's beaten everybody she needed to beat. She can't erase the losses that she's had. So it's not like if you keep winning, you erase your losses. She's done everything she can do in the sport. Her and her wife have a kid, And I think she mentioned they're expecting to have another kid. And I think now she just wants to be mom.
Remind me, did they ever rematch the Valentina and her?
They already fought twice.
Oh, okay. No,
But
sorry.
a lot of people thought Valentina won the one. The problem was Valentina lost her last fight.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So that kind of messed up any kind of
that
super
really
fight
did.
again, right?
Yep.
So yeah, there's that. All right, what's next?
All right. Elizabeth Gerardo writes, "Hi, John and crew. During the variety actor on actor interview, Elizabeth Olsen said she's done playing Wanda. Could this be a negotiation tactic, or is the Scarlet Witch really dead?"
If I'm remembering the quotes that I read right, she did not straight up say I'm done playing Wanda. She didn't say that. She said she's fine with the idea of being done playing Wanda. She's like, hey, I have loved playing this character, but I've played her for years. And if I am done, I'm perfectly fine that I'm done. Like, it's like, she said, I'm not on the phone with Kevin Feige or calling Kevin Feige every day with 10 ideas about my character. It's like, hey, if that's it, if I'm done, then I'm totally happy. I'm totally satisfied. But just to be clear, she did not come out and say, I am finished playing Wanda Maximoff. She didn't say that. She just said, if her time is over playing the character, she's totally good because she's loved playing the character. She's got to play it for years, got to have a blast doing it. But she did not at all discount the possibility that she may be back. Just to be, she may or may not come back. I'm just saying, be clear, she did not. She wasn't coming back.
She was great in that role.
She's so good. And I would contend this after watching Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is not the best MCU movie, but I would contend that after that, I don't know, other than Steve Rogers, that any character in the MCU has had a better story arc than Wanda. When you go through, when they first brought her in, that her mistake causes the events of Civil War, the development from there, then all the amazing stuff that happens in WandaVision, her turn, what happens to a good character when things like that happen to them, and she becomes what she becomes in Doctor Strange, the Multiverse. I honestly believe her character has had the best story arc, other than Steve, out of all the dozens of characters in the MCU. I really do. And if her time is over, it's over. Mm-hmm. And if she comes back, I'll be thrilled to see her come back. All right, what's next?
Okay, Shaky Jake 93 writes, "Hey, Smile Farmers, really loving the podcast. Are any of you fans of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? I've seen almost every show there is, and Sunny might be my all-time favorite show. Plus, the new season is great. Keep farming smiles. Love y'all."
You know what's funny? I really like the people in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I love Rob McElhenney. Mm-hmm. Not just because he's a co-owner of Wrexham Soccer with Ryan Reynolds, but his movie, what's it called? His show, something Quest. Mythic Quest, thank you. Ann and I love watching Mythic Quest. I think he's great on that show. Charlie Day, I love Charlie Day. I have never watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. What?
Spaceship.
Oh, that's Charlie Day in Lego Movie. Spaceship. I have never watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I love Danny DeVito.
Me too.
I love almost everybody involved with it, and I've never heard anything but good things about it.
It's been running a long time. Like I
was about to ask, how long has it been on?
I got to look that up. It's a long time. Like I was on it for like six seasons, I'd say, but it's still going.
Because I guess it's been at least 10 years, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm gonna look.
Maybe yes, maybe no.
Every time I flipped the channels and saw like it was on, it gave me that Cheers vibe. Is it anywhere close to Cheers?
I've never seen it.
Oh yeah, Jonathan.
How many seasons?
Season 16. I never would have thought it would.
Well, bravo for a show who can go that long.
Yeah, that's unheard of.
I watched through like season 6 or 7, and then it's become The Simpsons.
Because Supernatural got to what, 15 seasons?
Yep, I believe you're right.
And everybody's lauding it's like one of the longest running shows, but 16 seasons, unbelievable. But no, never watched it.
And they're still on. He said he's watching the new season.
Yeah, I saw an ad for it the other day of the new season, and I've never watched it. I got to give it a shot sometime. Okay, we got time for like maybe 2 more. What's next?
All right. Dildar the Glorious writes, "Rest in peace to another comics legend, John Romita.
Yes.
Senior, he was 93. His work on Spider-Man and creating Wolverine will go down as some of the greatest of all time for comics."
Yeah, and his most iconic image, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was his. The most iconic image I think he ever did was the one cover of, and it's iconic, where Peter Parker had thrown the Spider-Man costume in a trash can.
Yeah. It's number 50, right? Spider-Man No More?
Something like that. And you just see the back of Peter Parker walking away with the thing in the background. Yeah, it was really, really sad to hear that.
I didn't know he passed away.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
All right. We've got David Aaron. If writers and actors are given the streaming residuals they're asking for, would we see an increase in streamers removing shows, movies, still with the unions 100%?
Well, see, no, not necessarily, because they would only have to pay the actors and writers residuals if people are actually watching it. See, the problem that a lot of the streamers are having right now is that the deals are made, they're not the same types of deals with broadcast television. You see, under the current system and the way the agreements are done, just a show being on Netflix, it doesn't matter if anybody watches it or not. A show just being on Netflix, Netflix has to pay out a licensing fee. And what some people still call a residual, but doesn't function like a normal residual, but they're paying out fees, paying them out for a show that nobody watches and isn't doing anything for them. That is why you've seen a lot of the streamers, whether it's Netflix, Disney Plus, Max, whatever, they've started to remove a bunch of shows. Not because they're trying to take away shows people love, but it's because, hey, our data shows us nobody watches it. And it's costing us money just to have them sitting there. Now, for the actors and writers, what they're searching for is a model that is like broadcast television. That, hey, if 100 people watch the episode, you pay me this much of a residual. If 100 million people watch it, you pay me this much of a residual, right? So I don't think that would bother the streamers so much, because in order to pay the residuals, people would have to be watching the shows, in which case they're perfectly fine and happy. So yeah, it would be a little bit of a different game. All right, let's take one more. What's next?
All right. I'm glad I didn't close this out. Jesse has a turtle. Do you think it's essential that Bumblebee doesn't have a voice? I've now watched Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast, and I love how they use the radio this time, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't like his original voice at the beginning of Bumblebee. His radio thing was also in the original Transformers too, right?
No, the original cartoon, or
the movie.
Oh, the original
with
movie?
Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
It was a radio, right?
Yeah, they talk through the radio.
Yeah.
Is it essential that Bumblebee speak that way? No. Listen, I think it's very cute the way they do it, and I think it's charming. I like it, but no, I think they should go back to Listen, this is the part that's sometimes the Transformers logic is completely ridiculous. So you're telling me,
Yeah, I know where you're going.
you have this
I know where this goes.
technological being who, as the knowledge of the universe, can literally change forms into all these different things, she has weapons and missiles and lots of blah, blah, but oh, you know what? I haven't been able to fix his voice box.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the tricky part on Cybertron. That's the most advanced technology, is the voice box.
Pesky voice box.
The thing is,
yeah.
I don't think they mentioned it was broken in Rise of the Beast at all. Maybe he just likes using that instead to show whatever he's trying to say now.
Well, but remember, this is a sequel to Bumblebee, right?
Sorry.
Yeah, this is a sequel to Bumblebee. So
Yeah, you're right. See? That's what I keep you on the
And
show.
so now, and how did he bust his voice box for this one? Since it worked in the first, but now this Transformers Rise of the Beast, it's not working?
No, it's never worked. I mean, it worked in Bumblebee at the beginning, and then he got his voice destroyed. Right?
Okay.
And it's like, so you're this alien advanced technology, and you can't, like, literally, if I took you to Radio Shack, I could fix you. Like,
You're right.
really?
I never really thought about, like, how do they make missiles and bullets?
Just they Transformers. But
That's-
again, you go back to the original cartoons. Bumblebee never spoke through a radio voice. Again, I don't mind that they did that to give an extra little quirk to the
Right.
character. But is it as essential?
No, it needs to stop at this movie.
I agree.
Yeah, let's give him that
his voice
that-
back.
That come on, Chip voice or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever that little kid's name was.
I mean, I don't mind if he still throws in, like, there's a moment where he goes, "You can't handle the truth."
Yeah,
like,
that's great.
That's great, but
He needs
first
a
of all,
voice.
that never would have been on the radio.
Yeah, why was that on the radio?
Yeah, that wouldn't have been on the radio,
Oh, yeah,
by the
you're
way.
right.
It's a little problem with that, so yeah. All right, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to our YouTube channel members for sending in all those questions. Number one, because you gave us really interesting things to talk about. But number two, just by being YouTube channel members, you support us and all the stuff that we do here. And we thank you guys so much for your support. All right, guys, don't forget, a little bit later today, we've got our live stream open mic show on the YouTube channel. We hope you guys will join us for that. Also, don't forget to come on back tomorrow for the next installment of our podcast. So, for Ray Ora, Jonathan Voico,
See ya.
My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.